Tristan, first of all, your reaction to that extraordinary interview I just finished with your brother.
I think that was one of the best interviews ever conducted with Andrew. I don't know how hard you're going to go on me, so perhaps I'm making a mistake saying this. I like how you challenge your guests. I like how you seem to have a very impartial opinion on people. You don't judge things one way or another before you go into the interviews. And I think that made the interview with Andrew very interesting. I'm very excited to see the public response.
I mean, like I said to him, I'm not here to convict you or otherwise. I don't know if you're guilty or not of the charges laid against you. We'll establish that in a trial or otherwise. I mean, it may not even go to trial.
No, it might not.
I mean, it seems to me there's been an interesting relaxing of restrictions against you and your brother, really, from the time you were put in prison at the start of the year. What do you read into that?
Well, if you understand how the Romanian justice system works, again, I have to be very careful what I say. The pressure to put us in jail comes from not organizations. There are many great people who work at organizations like DCOT, which is the organization investigating us, but it comes from individual prosecutors who I am very much a trophy for, I would say. So the absolute obsession with putting me in jail comes from these people, but these people have nothing to do with judges, you see. At the end of the day, if you investigate me for a year and a half, throw me in jail, drag my name through the mud, eventually you're going to have to come up with a file of evidence and show it to a judge. So the people who keep letting me go are the people who've seen that file of evidence and don't have a motivation to keep me in jail. So that's it broken down as simply as I can.
In the BBC report of the prosecution files, they quote you as saying about the women who worked on your webcam business, I'm going to slave these bitches. I'm going to make them work even more hours and hours and hours. I work these bitches like slaves. Slave work, minimum 10 or 12 hours a day.
That is not true at all. So
you never said that?
No.
Or you said it sarcastically?
No, I didn't say it sarcastically at all. That is about my ex-girlfriend cleaning my house. So what you have to understand is when you go through a man's phone, you have 4 years and hundreds of thousands, millions of messages to everyone he's ever spoken to. Now this is about human trafficking, my accusation. So anyone coerced, anyone forced, anyone tied up, anyone kidnapped, anyone sold, anyone moved, none of that is in any of my WhatsApp conversations. But DCOT and the prosecutor essentially can eliminate parts of the conversation that he says are not relevant. Now, if you look at the timings between the messages on all of these conversations that look very bad, he's deleting various things, a lot of LOLs and a lot of ha-has, because believe me, if you were to read mine and my brother's conversations, even right now, you could probably accuse me of conspiracy to commit murder because of the stupid things that we talk about. I was talking about...
Conspiracy to commit murder?
I mean, Andrew, I'm going to kill you when I get home. Like things like this, which can be used, in a very negative way.
But now, you accept you've used language about women?
Loads. I've used worse language. But
how do you feel about that? Now it's all been laid bare.
Well, it's very unfortunate that I think this conversation is 3 years old. I think our house was messy after a party, and I was saying, "Oh yeah, she's my slave. Don't worry, I'll get her working."
Do you regret using language like that?
No, I don't, because
really,
well, last week my daughter's mother sent me a photo of her drawing on the wall with crayons. And I said, ha ha ha, I'm going to kill her when I get home. Now, you could delete the ha 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 because you feel that's irrelevant because you're the prosecutor, and you can arrest me and all my friends and throw me in jail for conspiracy to commit the murder of children. You could do that if you wish. But that's not the way I meant it.
No, but I'd ask a different question.
Yes.
I would say when your daughter grows up,
yes,
how would you like it if another man spoke about your daughter by saying, I'm going to slave the bitch, I'm going to make her work even more hours and hours, I work this bitch like a slave. If someone said that and you saw it actually in a message they sent about your daughter, how would you feel?
Well, that's not the best message to have sent, and there's lots of locker
room talk.
So you regret it? I regret that.
You either regret it or you don't.
No, I don't. I regret that it became public because, the way men speak to each other, if I were to go through all of your WhatsApp messages, I don't know what I'd find. And I also
you wouldn't mind if a man spoke that way about your daughter when she's older, you wouldn't mind? Or you would mind?
Of course I would mind, but it depends on the context of the relationship.
Do you think it's disrespectful?
The girl I was talking about cleaning my house at the time, I'm no longer with her. And also, this conversation is not about anyone who's listed as a victim in the file, which is a very important distinction to make. The girl I was talking about, I was very in love with at the time. I had a very great relationship with at the time. If you say to your girlfriend, "Oh, come here, I'm gonna spank you," that's not, if you're her co-worker or you're a man who's stalking her, it's a very different context to if you're her boyfriend.
The problem is that in the context of what you've been accused of,
yes, the prosecutor can make it look bad.
This looks damning.
Of course, but what he doesn't do is he doesn't show the whole conversations to any judge. That is a carefully manipulated and edited and actually constructed conversation, as all of the conversations are.
This whole lover boy thing, right? The suggestion is that you and Andrew, basically, you're two good-looking, fast-talking, smart guys, right? And you've have plenty of money and you've enjoyed yourselves, fine.
Yes.
And that you've managed to deliberately or otherwise, but the suggestion is deliberately, persuade a lot of women to fall in love with you very quickly, and then you use that relationship and how they feel about you to then guide them towards making money from webcams.
Well, that's interesting. Of the 7 women that you've listed, none of which we can name, do you know how many of them ever worked at my old webcamming business I had many years ago? Of the 7 victims listed, how many of them were in any way related to any of the activities I did when I ran a webcam studio? The answer, Piers, you'd be surprised to know, is 0. People on the internet, I call them Twitter detectives. Not the police, not DCOT, not even this over-ambitious prosecutor, because there are webcam studios all over the city, has tried to make any criminal complaint about that small business that me and Andrew, as he said, dipped our toe in. I was mainly running it, to be fair, all those years ago. None of these people who are alleged victims today have anything to do with the webcam studio. But if you watch clips on Twitter, when we speak as a 24-year-old, vulgarly, oh yeah, you know, I'm pimping because I'm in the club with a bunch of girls. You know, when we speak that way, it's easy to say, oh, look, he's admitted, he's confessed to his crimes. The old webcam studio and the current investigation have 0 strings in between them. So the question in and of itself doesn't make sense, if you understand that.
You could face further time in jail if you're convicted of these offences, a long time in jail. You were in jail earlier this year. What was that experience like for you?
Jail was, you know when you're going through something really difficult and it's almost unbearable, whether it be a difficult gym session or, you know, a major setback, and you come out after it's finished, and the moment it ends, you're like, yeah, I'm glad that happened. Jail was hell every single day. But the moment we got that phone call saying a judge who's now seen the evidence that they've allegedly raised against you has decided to release you, I was very happy for the experience. I'm very happy I spent 3 months living in those conditions.
What did you find out about yourself?
I didn't find out anything new. I feel like it was my opportunity to show to myself and to my brother and to the world that I am the man who I say I am. I always preach being mentally strong, physically strong. You know, I put on this tough guy persona, but I don't think it's a tough guy persona, because if I can survive 3 months in a Romanian prison without incident, without tears, without being upset.
You didn't shed any tears?
I did not in jail.
Did you know that Andrew had?
I believe that Andrew's tears were tears of anger. He was more angry than I was. Whereas me and Andrew are very balanced. We have a very balanced relationship. We keep each other in check. When he's angry, I calm him down. When I'm angry, he calms me down. I believe Andrew was a lot angrier at the situation. Andrew knew a lot less about the situation. I can at least read some Romanian. I was trying to make sense of it all. He was sitting there in pure frustration.
But they're serious criminal charges.
Well, they're serious criminal charges. But what I would say to you is, what is the serious criminal evidence? So again, this is from the, I'm going to work this for hours. It's about a girl cleaning my house, by the way. So this is the big bombshell. The BBC, because I don't know how they got the indictment, but the indictment should be private. I'd love to give you a copy. I really would. But the criminal indictment isn't what the prosecutor says I've done. It's the evidence against me. So if the BBC have read their grubby little fingers through all of this evidence and all the files, and the worst thing they have to come at me with is, Tristan, you said this girl's your slave. I've said that. I've said worse things.
Have you ever coerced women?
No, I've never coerced anybody into doing anything they don't like.
Do you accept them, as I said to Andrew, that some of the language, even in the things he tweets now, suggests that his idea of how women should be treated is that they effectively are a form of slave to a man?
You know, Piers, I really like you, and I sometimes feel you fall for Andrew's little traps, and it's really wonderful to watch, because it's not the things he says. It's the way he says them, and the way he says them can get people very riled up. When I was sitting listening to your interview about women shouldn't work and be taken care of, etc., it actually took me back about 12 or 13 years to an interview I saw, I can't remember, I think it was on ITV, with the late Christopher Hitchens. You probably knew him.
I did.
I did not know Christopher Hitchens. I think he died way before I became relevant. But he was sitting there with this female journalist, and he's saying, his exact words were, oh, I don't want Mrs. Hitchens to be coarsened in the labor market. Why would I want my women coarsened in the labor market? No, if she's with me, she can work if she wants, but she doesn't have to. Now, he was not labeled the world's biggest misogynist. He was actually hailed as an intellectual this time. I read all of his books. I used to be a big fan of his. But he said exactly the same thing Andrew said. Exactly the same thing with different intonations and different tones. And you probably knew him. You didn't attack him back then for saying that, did you? But Andrew,
well, I'm not here to judge.
He can get people riled up.
Christopher Hitchens is no longer with us, sadly. He was a brilliant man in many ways. I disagree with him about many things, but he's not why I'm here, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
You know, it just seems to me that the rhetoric, particularly by Andrew, but also some of the stuff they found with you. The
Sure.
way that you talk about women may be part of the problem you found yourselves in here. And from Andrew's recent tweeting, there's no sign to me that he is aware or self-aware of quite how some of this stuff comes over.
I understand.
And that maybe that has been part of the problem here with you guys.
Well, again, when you look at Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate and you try to label them misogynists, you gender the argument. If I were accused of anything else and they were to read the conversations, which they did read, by the way, between me and my friends, the insults we give each other, the threats we make to each other.
Do you think a woman's place is at home serving her man?
No. I believe my woman's place is at home serving her family. I serve my family.
But she
too.
shouldn't go to work.
She wouldn't have to if
But
she
she
didn't want
shouldn't
to. If I wanted her to and she wanted to and we agreed as a family.
If you wanted her to.
If we agreed as a family.
What if you don't want her to but she does?
Well, in the same way that if I was working a normal job and I got a promotion, that would mean that I move out of the city or we move as a family, we'd sit there and discuss it as a family. I don't believe that there's one rule for every single family. I don't see...
Yeah, but Andrew does.
I don't see in the future my woman working, no. Because I think I could take care of my woman and I could take care of my family.
You wouldn't be... I don't think you'd be with a woman who wanted to work, right?
I've been with women who worked.
And how did that go?
Wonderfully. I've had some absolutely wonderful relationships.
Well, doesn't that prove the point? That this whole idea a woman has to stay at home and serve her man is actually a lot of cobblers.
Again, I don't think serve her man was something Andrew specifically said. I would phrase
Well, he did. I mean, that's why I read that whole tweet.
Well, Andrew's not me and I'm not Andrew. What I would say is a woman serves her family.
Are you different in your outlook on that?
Me and Andrew are very different. Me and Andrew are very different people.
Rolling Stone, in a profile, said this about
Rolling Stone.
Their relationship dynamic is very odd. It's like Tristan is held captive by Andrew and believes or follows everything Andrew says or does.
I don't believe or follow a lot of things that Andrew says or does. You know, I get asked every single day to counter. E.J. Dickinson is this woman's name. I could tell you some horrible stories about the people who she's harassed and